I am Jahan. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for everyone who subscribed to my channel, who press like, who comment, share my post. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'm encouraging you to go ahead and do that. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. And just let me introduce myself. I am a fashion model. I am a writer, a graphics designer, and I work with a publishing company that publish books. And I am the queen of Jamaica by right. As a young girl growing up, my grandmother would tell me about our history in Jamaica. My grandmother told me that life started in Jamaica with the brown skin black Indian girls. And due to the politics in Jamaica, they weren't able to um, maintain the monarchy because of unfair treatment. People who came into the community, there was a fight and war with the JLP and the PMP, and the dreadlocks people were forcing people to say we were from Africa. When we weren't from Africa, they ganged up with the European people, came into our community, and ruined our original indigenous homes that were there. I don't know if it was in my grandmother's time, but I do remember my grandmother telling me about the houses that were built out of crystal. If you ever heard the term, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stone. Well, my grandmother used to tell me that they used to have houses. I don't know if her in particular, but somewhere along the way, they had houses that were made out of crystals, and somehow the weather became too hot and the crystal homes started falling apart. I don't know if the crystal homes are made out of salt or if it was glass crystal or whatever, but I do remember my grandmother telling me that when the weather in Jamaica got so hot, some of the homes literally just fell apart. Our clothing, the Middle Eastern and the Oriental people, they borrowed our clothing and they never brought it back, and they left us with rags that we had to wear. We are a family that came from royalty, the original bloodline of that you hear in the Bible and so forth. We are from that bloodline. So, due to military and different war tactics, we were not able to defend ourselves as a family and as a race. Things went haywire. The government of Jamaica raised havoc. I think the Illuminati, the KKK, the MK Ultra program, all those programs were set up to um, spin people around in circle and send black people on a wrong path that's not going to do something to help them in the future or to help their race. So that's where I'm coming from. These are things that my grandmother told me, and I was able to present them to the people of the world. And I'm very happy that I got that opportunity to do that. And in the beginning, God created the brown skinned black Indian girls who populated this entire world, and they created the world with their Rasta hair, not dreadlocks. Dreadlocks is something completely different from Rasta. The dreadlocks ones are the ones who mash up Jamaica and took the side of the Europeans and brought Europeans into our community where normally they wouldn't be allowed to come into our community. There were, what did she tell me now? Let me try to remember. There were the Spanish, I think those were the Arawaks. They were living close to the water because they were cannibals and they were eating people. And people would go after them when they came into the community and steal people's family and ate them. People would go after them. Those were the criminals. Those were the Spanish people. Spanish people and Middle Eastern people and Pakistani people and Tamil people, those are all the same people, just a different skin tone, right? When they tell you about black come in different shade, no, black just comes in one shade, brown comes in one shade. They come in a lot of different shades. The Middle Eastern, the Tamil, the Arawak, and the Spanish people, those are all the same people. All four of them are the same people, but each one of them, depending on how much raw meat they ate or depending on what they did in order to alter their physical appearance and their skin, their race changed from the original race. They were very barbaric. They were very um, almost kind of gross. Like they didn't shower. There was no showering. They even though they lived close to the water, because they would be pushed closer to the water out of fear of being caught for stealing people and killing people's family member and eating them, even eating their own family members. Those are the cannibals, and because they ate the raw meat and the raw people, their features changed to canine type of hair that you see on Spanish people or European people now, where originally the dreadlocks hair is not something that we wore on our head. What happened was, from what my grandmother told me, is you used to grow your hair, whether it grew in a big poof ball or it grew coming down. But at a certain time of the year, they would measure your hair. I think when it reached down to your calf or somewhere down there, when it reached down to your calf, you would the person would have to cut their hair. But it would be a ceremony. They would go through a ceremony and cut their hair. And when they cut their hair, they would turn it into Rasta hair. That's where the Rasta came from. Now, the dreadlocks people, instead of making their hair grow down to their calf and, growing mid calf or so forth, and then cutting it, the dreadlocks people started ruining the ritual of creating earth and started keeping the dreadlocks hair on their head. And that was something that was an abomination. And that was something that was forbidden. And that was something that you did not do, because the hair was something that you would grow to a certain length. It would grow nice and, one like hair, not canine hair, but Indian hair, not Middle Eastern canine hair that you know it now, but our original brown skin black Indian girl's hair would grow long and beautiful. Some people would wear it poof in a big ball, or some people would bring it down and so forth. And when it reached a certain length, a ceremony would have to be produced. That's to show you that dreadlocks people, when people look up to them like, oh, they are religious and they're holy and they're pure, the thing that they're doing with their hair is something that is an abomination. It's something that they're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to make your hair lock. And Emperor Haile Selassie is the head of Ras. And if you go to the Orthodox Church, which was set up by Emperor Haile Selassie, I just want to say this and get this out there. This is not a King Selassie video, but I want to say it just to show you what I'm talking about. Emperor Haile Selassie set up the Ethiopian Orthodox Church in the Western Hemisphere. And there's no Western Hemisphere where you can go where in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church you can rise in hierarchy if you have dreadlocks here. You have to cut your hair if you want to rise to be a priest or if you want to come up in the church, just to let you know. So when these dreadlocks and Rasta is two completely different things. I think Morgan and Heritage have a song said, you don't have a dread to be Rasta. It's absolutely true. That's coming from our descendants. That's coming from our ancestors. You don't have to be dread to be Rasta. Rasta is something that is it's from your heart, it's from your inside, it's from your courage, it's from your knowledge, it's from doing truth and righteousness, and from doing good, and from living pure and living a good life and eating proper food and dealing with people the proper way and having responsibility of family and so forth. So Rasta is has nothing to do with your hair. Rasta, well, it does have something to do with your hair, but it doesn't have to do with the hair that's on your head. A Rasta hair was hair that you cut off and then turn it into earth. So the planet Earth, the moon, those planets were created from the hair of the brown skinned black Indian girl's hair. Now, when I say Indian, I don't mean the canine Indians with beige skin that you're seeing right now, or even the canine Indians. Some of them have brown skin. The Tamils ones, they have brown skin. Not those Indians. They did not participate in creating hair or earth with their hair. Those were cannibals. The reason why they have canine here is because they were doing cannibal things. In the Bible, when you read the Bible, there's so many things about cooking meat and cooking food and disregarding it when you make it and it stay for one day and all of it has to be eaten a certain time. There's a reason why the Bible is so specific about that. Because if you don't cook food properly, I live in a country where the law says you have to cook the meat for 15 seconds. After 15 seconds, you can serve that meat and sell it to people. Nowhere in Jamaica can anybody cook meat for 15 seconds and sell it to anybody at all. Never, never, ever, 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 ever. That is completely that is forbidden. In Jamaica, Jamaica is a place where you cook meat, you cook it, cook it, cook it. So we didn't participate in the cannibal things, and it's very unfortunate to say, but any Ethiopian restaurant you go to right now, you can go there and you can order raw meat, and they will serve you raw meat on a platter. It could be a platter for individuals or a platter for family, and people eat it. It's like a popular thing in Ethiopia. So, with that being said, I want you to know your heritage and know where you're coming from. And these things are happening in the world. And brown skin, black Indian girls, I speak to you all the time because you guys are the ones that the world is purposely, the world has a plan to hold you back and to feed you and give you things that are not good for you. And the ones who fell into the trap, who turned into the canine hair people as we know it now, those are the people who didn't follow the rule because Lucifer was giving them things and they went along with it. And people like me now, who my ancestors and my race, we followed the rules. We followed everything that we were supposed to follow. And then somehow along the way, war came, the dreadlocks people who they were wearing the dreadlocks here, and that was an abomination. You were not allowed to do that. The hair only became locks when you cut it. But when it became locks, it was treated and put together all the tribes and it would form earth, right? So when you see dreadlocks people with that Rasta hair, that is not a good thing to wear that hair, Rasta hair on your head. That is an abomination. And a lot of Rasta people, they are fake and they are phony and they if you give them any circumstance, if someone's looking, they'll choose the black one just to make it look good. But when no one's looking, they always put the white, beige skinned people over the brown skinned black people. And they give away our inheritance and our birthright to Africa. When we were indigenous from Jamaica, and we were doing whatever we were doing, our family was there, kings and queens came out of our family, and instead of following the rules and doing what they're supposed to do, they went and they formed political parties, but they didn't want it to seem like they formed the political parties, so they draw gang members from in the community and made it look like, oh, people were fighting against Rasta, We were saying the hair that you have on your head is, it's a sacred thing that we use to create earth. You can't wear it on your head. When you wear your hair in dreadlocks hair, that means, because dreadlocks hair is not together, it's one lump, one lump, one lump. That means, from what my grandmother told me, that means you want to split up your family because your hair is split. So if you ever notice, it's very rare you see a dreadlocks person gets a black woman pregnant and stays with his family. He always, most times, will get the black woman pregnant, leave her alone as a single mother, and go on and breed more and more and more people. And you don't understand. The hair is causing that. The hair is saying you want to split up your family, because the dreadlocks hair, it's in, like, okay, see your finger, how they are split? That's how the dreadlocks hair is, right? Nobody wants their hair to grow together, their fingers to go together like a web. Fingers are split apart. So that's what the dreadlocks hair is all about. They are mostly men. There's women too, but most of it is men. And when you wear your hair in the locks, that means you're saying you want to split up your family. So a Caucasian, someone with beige skin, to me, all people with beige skin are white people. Even if you have nappy hair or negroid features, to me, you are still a white person. And that's how I was taught, and that's how I was grown, and that's how I was raised. When it came to albinos, my grandmother told me that albinos are from dirty sex, and when albinos do cannibal things and start eating their one another, because European and white people, they never used to bathe, they never used to shower. I don't know where all that information went, but if Africa meant nothing to the world, they would have preserved the information about Europeans who never took a shower for centuries. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years, Europeans never bathed. When they poo, they, just like how animals would just sit in their poo and walk around in their poo and stuff like that. That's how European people used to be. That's how Europe used to be. Europe was a place where you send these cannibals where, I don't think they had death at the time. So the cannibals who were eating their one another were creating something called death when we did not have death. And they would go to Europe, and they would sit in their feces, they would sleep in feces, they wouldn't bathe. It was in their hair. It was very dirty and it was very nasty. And I don't know why Africa would not preserve that information for us so we would have it here right now if they are originally from the original descendants, right? We Jamaicans populated this entire world, and we created the earth with our hair, and we were kings and queens all over the world. We had houses that were made out of crystal, and because cloud seed and weather modification caused the sun to get very hot, and the atmosphere got so hot, and the houses that were made out of crystal started melting. That's just what my grandmother told me. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. And another thing is, when they made ships, like the ships that they have now, the ships used to have a cover over it. For some reason, I don't know why they don't make ship with a cover now, but I do remember my grandmother saying the ships had like a glass covering over it. For whatever reason, I don't know. I'm not into shipbuilding, and that's not my specialty, and I don't know what that's all about. But my grandmother told me that. And